Testing. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Hello?
If I'm in your way, give me some kind of wave or signal.
Thanks, Jordan. Okay, I'll get started.
All right. Hello. Hello. For everyone just coming in, please find a seat. There's a lot open in the front. My name's Ryan Feng. I'm a junior in the design development track of IST and also a student volunteer of the startup committee. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker. He has founded Keen Home, which is a company that makes interconnected devices to make your home smart. Please give a warm welcome to Nayeem Hussain.
Everyone, can you hear me? Ryan forgot to mention I'm Smeal class of 05, so it's good to be back. I just got into Penn State about half an hour ago. So let's kick this off. This is supposed to be a video. Do you know how to get that to play? Just hit play. Yeah. There you go.
Too sharp.
Hit that button. Yeah, there you go.
Two sharks are out. Nayeem and Ryan have two offers on the table from Damon and Kevin for their smart air vent Keen Home. But Robert is also interested.
So Damon and Kevin are $750,000 for 25%. I think that's a little rich. I'll give you the $750,000 for 20%. Thank you for your offer. That's a good offer.
That's still a down round.
It's still a down round. That's correct. Down rounds send all kinds of signals in the marketplace, as you all well know, and that's not something that we're looking to entertain right now.
Okay, I'll solve your problem for you. Let's go debt, all right? You'll give me the 10%, I'll give you venture debt. I'll give you $750,000 at 8.5%, okay? And I want 10% equity for that. I'll put the money out for 36 months, all right?
Okay.
But it solves your down round problem, and you get a shark.
I would be willing to go in with Kevin on
You want
his
to go
deal.
50-50? Where you're at, venture debt is not a bad option for you.
Sure.
If Lori comes in with me, you get two sharks, and you do not do a down round.
Right, but I want 25%.
Down round, man.
No, hold on.
They
I
call
can
him
carve it a
Mr.
different
Down
way.
Round.
They're not going to do the down round.
Are you partners with them already?
I think the loan offer is interesting. I get why you don't want to do a down round. I respect that. What I'm really fascinated by is the compliance that's going to happen in this industry. It's going to be driven by the insurance companies for smarter homes. And I think that's going to take all of this to another level. We agree. $750,000 for 13%. That's my offer. Okay.
That deal's going to cost you more equity.
I have a lot of products that are fitting in the hardware space. We're in Lowe's, we're in Home Depot, Bed Bath & Beyond. There's a lot of places you can go.
Agreed.
I'm willing to go down more to 750 for 20%. You don't have proof of concept yet. You have a great start because of the Lowe's. Doesn't mean Lowe's is going to sell it. Doesn't mean it's going to work over there. It's a little early.
I never like to take debt when I'm at this stage. I'm an all-in kind of guy when you're this small. When you get bigger, sure, take on debt. But when you're small, you got to drive it, baby. You got to go.
But you'll have so many sales and you'll have so much money. It won't matter.
Those are the offers. What are you going to do?
Cliffhanger, Great to be here. I'm going to give a talk today on how to pitch like a shark. You saw we were on Shark Tank. That was about 3 years ago, season 6. We got offers from 4 out of the 5 sharks, and I'm going to teach you guys how to pitch to share some of my tips for success. So it doesn't necessarily apply only to Shark Tank. Obviously, it's not the easiest thing to get on that show. It should apply to job interviews. It should apply to pitching to investors if you have an idea and you're looking to raise money. The art of pitching is useful. The art of negotiating is useful through all facets of your life. So as Ryan mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Keen Home. What is Keen Home? Keen Home is a smart home startup. We build hardware, software devices that enhance what we call the core functions of your home infrastructure, whether that's heating and cooling, plumbing, electrical. Those are the areas of the home that we like to focus on. Our core product is called the Keen Zoning System, and that is a product that helps regulate airflow in all the rooms of your home. So think about it like instead of using a single thermostat to control the airflow for your entire home, our product lets you have thermostat functionality in every room. So you can control the temperature and airflow in every room. driving efficiency, comfort, and control. We've raised about $10 million since we were founded in 2013, and we have about 12 employees, a handful of interns, and a bunch of contractors. We're headquartered in New York City. We've done about $3 million of revenue, and we've sold over 40,000 units since we went to market towards the end of 2014. So the first lesson I'll give is, or I'll relate, is make them come to you. So our season 6 of Shark Tank, there was 37,000 applications. 160 people out of 37,000 were chosen to go to LA and try out, and out of that 160, 120 made it on TV. So you're talking about 0.3% out of the total number of applicants. Obviously, really, really small. We didn't apply through the normal channels. We had a producer contact us to try out. Now, we still had to go through the same process that everybody did, but we made them come to us. And how did we do that? We did that by getting some really good press. The Inc. magazine did an article on the coolest startups, and we were one of them, and they did a competition where people voted, and it was kind of a March Madness style bracket, and we made it to the final 2, and a Shark Tank producer noticed that and decided to reach out. So what is the lesson there? The lesson there is it's really hard sometimes to get noticed, but if you can sort of be your own publicist, or be a thought leader, write a blog, put your thoughts down. If you're working on some cool shit, people will take notice, and when people take notice, oftentimes good things happen. So always, when possible, make them come to you. So put yourself out there, try to get some press, try to be a thought leader, try to put your thoughts out there and get other people to notice, and generally good things are going to happen. Get comfortable pitching. How many here like public speaking? Enjoy it? Yeah, so it's like 5% of you. I'm with the majority. I don't really enjoy public speaking. Very few people do. How do you get good at it? You practice. You practice your ass off, right? You practice in front of a camera. You practice in front of other people. You practice by yourself. The only way that you are going to be comfortable pitching or talking about yourself, whether you're pitching yourself for a job, whether you're pitching yourself for investment, is to practice. And everybody hates practicing. I do too. Practicing in front of a camera is great. Taping yourself and playing it back is great, because you'll notice maybe nervous tics that you have, space fillers in your speech, all sorts of things. Practicing in front of other people, getting their honest feedback is great. Practice makes perfect. I'm a true believer that there are really very few natural public speakers. That person's a natural. No, that person probably worked really hard at it, and what you're seeing is a result of that hard work. But get comfortable pitching. Be yourself. To their credit, the producers of ABC, of Shark Tank, never really pressured my co-founder and I to dress a certain way, speak a certain way, pitch the business in a certain way. They really encouraged us to be ourselves. And it seems like an obvious statement, but if you're at a job interview, if you're pitching an investor for money, you're there for a reason, right? You were brought at that moment because that person or that organization was impressed by you, was impressed by your idea, was impressed by your vision. So don't try to be something that you think that person wants you to be. Just be yourself, because that's sort of what got you there, as tempting as it is. Another tip here, know your business inside and out. Seems like a no-brainer, but you would be shocked at how many entrepreneurs, how many individuals are full of shit, right? They don't know the ins and outs of their idea or their company or their work experience, right? It's always tempting to try to fake the funk, try to hype things up. But if you're sitting across the table from someone who's been around the block and who's smart, they're going to find holes in what you're saying, and they're going to try to drill down into different concepts, and you have to be prepared to go down that rabbit hole. Again, that comes with time, that comes with experience, and that comes with practice, right? So when we were in the tank, we were in there for about 2 hours, right? They edited it down to 15 minutes, but you're really going through every facet of your business, because the sharks don't know anything about you or your company. Legally, they're not allowed to know about you or your company. And you're not allowed to have any contact with them prior to the show because they want that experience to be authentic, and it is, right? When you walk through those doors, you know, you're on a constantly recording camera, and you're talking for 2 hours, and they're asking you questions about anything and everything relating to your business. So this, of course, also applies to job interviews. Yeah?
So when you actually shook hands with Mark Cuban or whoever you made the deal with, like, was that the actual deal, or?
I'll answer that in Q&A. Yeah, you'll find out, though. So how to get a deal, right? Kind of goes along with your question. You've practiced your pitch. You know your business in and out. What are some tips to actually closing a deal? So have leverage, right? How many of you can give an example? Who can give an example of what having leverage is? So having leverage is essentially having an advantage that you don't necessarily make known, you know, immediately, or you can make it known immediately depending on how advantageous it is to you. So in our example, we had a deal with Lowe's Home Improvement Centers to buy about $1 million worth of our product a year before the product was even released. So they had committed, based on, you know, our pitch to them, that they would purchase the product, stock the product in over 600 stores all across the country. And for any investor, the main thing that they're concerned about is there demand for the product? How do we know that people want this product, right? So that's why you see people doing Kickstarter campaigns, right? Crowdfunding, because what that does is it validates that it's not just, you and your team are not the only people who think you're working on something cool, that there are thousands or millions of people all over the country, all over the world that, you know, want your product and want to pay money for your product. So we had that leverage, and we also had that leverage in that we had already raised $1.6 million before going on Shark Tank. So we were not desperate for their money. So in a way, that's leverage, because generally the sharks have leverage, or investors have leverage, because generally you go to investors with lint in your pockets, right? With, I'm barely having, you know, enough money to scrape by. I'm eating ramen noodles every week. If I don't get any money or raise any money, I'm not gonna be able to sort of live out my business dream. Thankfully, we had money already in the bank, so we were able to be a little bit more aggressive in the way that we negotiated. They edited a lot of it out. 99% of it was edited out. But we were actually negotiating back and forth with them and getting really creative and having a lot of fun doing it. But having that leverage really, really is a game changer in any sort of deal or negotiation. So, you know, this is somewhat specific to our business because we make hardware, right? Hardware and full stack software. But hardware can, you know, imagine that as a blank. Blank is hard. So have a plan, right? So whether you have an idea for an app, whether you have an idea for a physical product, whether you have an idea for a service, right? You have to understand that whatever your business is, it's going to have its own intricacies, right? Hardware businesses, you have to deal with operations, you have to deal with supply chain, you have to deal with customer service, you have to deal with manufacturing, you have to deal with returns, you have to deal with reviews and how to do marketing for those things and advertising, right? You have to really know the ins and outs of the dynamics of what you want to build and the company that you want to build. That doesn't mean you have to be an expert in all those things, right? But if you're building a company that has, you know, that needs a lot of marketing to acquire customers, and you are not a marketer, then you have to have a plan for how you're going to get a marketer, right? So having a plan involves having the humility to say, you know, I know that these are all of the different intricacies of this business I'm trying to build, and these are the people I already have in place or I'm going to have in place once I can raise some money, right? That shows an investor that you are someone that can think about the challenges that you're facing without ego, and that you also have a level head to get help and build a team. Because at the end of the day, ideas are ideas, and ideas are great, but it's the team that's going to execute those ideas, and that's going to be the Facebook where, you know, High Five and MySpace and all the other social networks just weren't able to execute. So don't reveal all your cards, and this is obviously good if you're on TV. That Lowe's deal I spoke of, we didn't mention until, you know, maybe an hour in. So it made for nice TV because the Sharks were sort of thinking they had us penned into a corner, and oh, you know, as Damon said, oh, you haven't really proved anything. But yeah, we proved that, you know, a large retailer was interested enough in the product and in the concept and in the prototypes that they stuck their neck out and gave us a purchase order for $1 million. So if you can have, you know, leverage that you keep hidden and you reveal it, it's a dangerous game sometimes, but if you can pull it off properly, it can really work out to your benefit. So remain calm and be confident. This is great for interviews, right? Where a lot of times you'll have an investor, you'll have an interviewer that's trying to rattle you, that's doing what's called a stress-based interview. If any of you are thinking about going into finance, a lot of bankers, a lot of consultants like to pull this technique where they'll maybe be a little bit mean to you, be a little rude, be a little dismissive, be arrogant, be aggressive. And they do this because they want to see how you respond, how you react, right? Do you react by sort of shrinking? Do you react by lashing out and being rude right back to them? Or do you react with confidence and grace and confidence in your own abilities to, you know, really answer the question? So it's really important to really know yourself and know what your triggers are, and, you know, kind of be your own psychoanalyst, or listen to what your friends say when they say, hey, look, you're a real dick when X, Y, Z, right? Because a lot of times people will try to trigger you just to see how you'll respond. So always remember to try to take a couple deep breaths, be calm, and project that confidence. Similarly to the last point, when someone is attacking your company, attacking your core beliefs about something, you should always stick up for yourself, right? You should always defend yourself, but do it intelligently, right? You know, very similar to the previous point I was making, you know, you don't ever let anybody just, you know, denigrate what you believe in, right? Don't let anybody denigrate your business idea without defending it intelligently, because people will try to do that. And that's not to say that they're always going to be wrong and you're always going to be right, but if you can present a sort of cogent argument to why you think you're right, that person at the very least will gain a lot of respect for you. So it's something that you should, again, practice doing, in that when you're practicing pitching, when you're practicing giving presentations to your peers, to your mentors, really embrace that feedback they give you. And if you want to go back and forth and spar a little bit about, you know, that person thinks this idea is terrible, or this you know, go-to-market is terrible, or this marketing plan is terrible, or your business model sucks, you know, be prepared to kind of go back and forth a little bit. And maybe you'll lose, but at the end of the day, you know, you've at least gone through that, and hopefully you learn something from it. Don't be arrogant, though, right? There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And oftentimes, you know, when you're young, you know, sometimes your confidence can be misconstrued as arrogance. So you always want to be careful to, at the end of the day, be thankful, be humble, right? Even if you feel slighted, if you, again, approach the interaction with sort of this humble confidence or grace, you'll really gain a lot of respect from the counterparty. And at the end of the day, you gotta have fun, right? I mean, in your 20s, and you're gonna graduate, you're gonna work long hours, you're gonna maybe work for a boss that you don't like, be at a company that you don't like, and you know, it's easy to just say have fun, but you know, just to be in this room, just to be, you know, have these opportunities, you know, we're all really blessed, and everybody should be really thankful for what you all have, because it's a hell of a lot more than 99% of the other people in this world. So, you should try to keep that optimism, try to keep that positive attitude, and that'll be infectious, right? If you're trying to build a team, if you're trying to convince people, at the end of the day, what is pitching? It's just persuasion. It's just convincing other people to get excited about what you're excited about. And maybe some of those people will want to work with you. Maybe some of those people will want to work for you. And if you're having fun, the people around you are going to be having fun. And hopefully you can build something really cool together and change the world and improve the world and help other people. So we did a deal with Robert. That's the epilogue. The deal that we shook on was later renegotiated. Again, going back to leverage. We didn't need Robert's money. He wanted to give us $750,000. We didn't need that money at the time, so we had leverage. His leverage was, oh, well, your show might not air if we don't do a deal. We said, we think it will air. It did air. And then we were able to negotiate a deal where Robert was granted some equity options in exchange for being an advisor to the company. So Robert is still involved with the company. His team handles a lot of promotion, marketing, social media, influencer type of efforts for us. And he's a great guy to work with. So with that, happy to take your questions. I always like to leave a good chunk of time for questions because ultimately I'm here for you guys, and if I can help you guys answer anything you want to know, I'm more than happy to do so.
Just raise your hands if you have a question. I'll come to you with the mic.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Vlad. I was able to read about your company before coming today, so I'm just wondering what products are you planning to sell in the nearest future, because right now, as far as I know, you sell like 3 major products.
Yeah, so we sell, it's 3 products, but it's one system. It's a retrofit air vent that has sensors in it, a separate standalone sensor, and a Zigbee bridge, and those all come together to form one system. A lot of investors, a lot of people like to say, oh, what's the next thing, what's the next thing? And we have an idea for a next thing. We have a patent on it. It's to prevent catastrophic flooding in people's homes by adding intelligence to sump pumps and sewage pumps that many people have in their basements. And we think that that's going to be a huge deal to prevent catastrophic flooding in people's homes. But it's also important to just focus on what's in front of you. It's easy to always kind of jump to what the next cool thing is going to be, and then what happens is you don't execute fully on what you're doing, and then revenue starts to slide, deals are missed, partnerships dissolve, and then your company goes bankrupt. So we're not necessarily planning on going to market with another product, at least for the next year. We're really focused on growing revenue for our core product right now.
What's your target audience?
Yeah, single-family homeowners across the United States and Canada, generally between 35 and 50 with children. That's sort of our core demographic.
Okay, any other questions?
Okay. So would you say, are there any platforms that kind of propel you onto the entrepreneurship role? For college students like us, after we go and graduate, where do you think is the best possible place to get into that next level?
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of young kids I talk to who are sort of just about to graduate and kind of at that crossroads between, I have this offer from, a large corporation, but I also have my own idea. What should I do, or how do I get into startups? Me personally, I graduated here in 2005. I worked in the finance world for 7 years. Then I did my MBA, and then while doing my MBA, I entered into a business planning competition with a classmate, and Keen Home was born out of that. So I was, pretty much 30 by the time I started my first company, right? And now you have 17-year-olds starting companies on a daily basis, right? There's pros and cons, right? I think having a good solid 7 years of work experience really helped me a lot on getting both hard skills and soft skills to form a team, raise money, manage that money once you've raised it, budgeting, financial modeling, all that kind of stuff. And I always encourage, people to really, take a hard look at working for, small, medium, larger size company, because you learn skills that can be very useful to you as you try to start a company. I think, to answer your question more directly, there's all sorts of resources and tools now to sort of learn more about startups. Really depending on what city you live in, generally there's going to be meetups, right, where like-minded people want to get together and exchange ideas. Chances are there's going to be some incubators, right, that are basically like large shared office spaces that you sometimes have to apply to pay for a desk to sit there, but there's generally a whole ecosystem of other entrepreneurs, other maybe investors that kind of visit there, maybe journalists go there every now and then. But try to become part of a startup ecosystem wherever you are, and try to meet like-minded people, and kind of grow your network within the startup space in wherever you're living. And you'll kind of stumble on a cool person with an idea, or maybe you have an idea and you'll find a cool person, that person will be your co-founder, and you can kind of grow it organically that way. And then you can get into an accelerator program, right, and that can sort of lead to maybe some early funding. There's all sorts of opportunities that are available now that weren't there 4 or 5 years ago even.
Hi, I'm over here.
Hey,
I'm Rachel. I'm
sorry.
a current SMEAL student. I had a question regarding the equity, because as a co-founder, you have to make those decisions at the beginning.
Yeah.
About who's getting what equity. I know a lot of people do the 50-50 approach, and then leading off of that, what's your equity standpoint as of now?
Okay. It's a great question. I think it's kind of unfortunate that a lot of tough decisions have to be made at the outset when maybe the idea is not even fully formed, but you're kind of being forced to split up equity. You can kick that can down the road, a little bit. But if you're if you're forming a corporation, if you're kind of getting your legal formation all set up, it is good to have that conversation with your founding team. And I think for me, it boils down to risk. So what do I mean by that? I mean, if one of your co-founders is working full-time and doing this nights and weekends, and you're working on this full-time, then it's not really fair to split the equity 50-50, right? Because that person is taking much less personal risk than you. They have a safety blanket of a full-time job, right? But I do believe no matter whose idea it was, again, going back to what I said in my talk, ideas are great, but everybody has ideas, and no matter how great your idea is, I'd be willing to bet 10 other people somewhere in this world have had that idea before. That's no offense to you. So it's really, how are you and your founding team going to execute this idea, and how much time are you all willing to put into it? And if that answer is, we're all in this together, we're all going to be in, foregoing a full-time salary and jumping in this together, then I'm a proponent of splitting everything up equally. Yeah. Oh, you asked how much equity. So generally, that's generally a personal thing, and I don't take offense to it. But generally, people won't answer that question. I own about 17% of the company as of now. Was there a question in the middle?
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think with the process of hiring, it's always tricky because you believe you need somebody. They'll try to convince you that you need them. Generally, engineers will, who are really smart, are very tempting to kind of snatch up. But it's important when you're building a company to think about the culture that you're trying to build, the types of personalities, the type of people. All need to reflect, a company culture, right? And they all need to sort of buy into that. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of conflict. So we've hired some people down the line that, we kind of knew in the back of our minds we're in a great culture fit, but we needed the work done, right? You have this constant push and pull between we have all this work that needs to get done, but we need people to do it. So certainly there's been hiring decisions that, that don't end up working out, and you have to let that person go in 6-7 months because nobody else gets along with them, that you learn from, right? So one of my mentors, his name's Brad Feld, he told me once, it's better to have a hole on your team than an asshole. And it sounds funny, and it is kind of funny, but it's really true. And it's sort of painful, and a lot of times you have to kind of discover that on your own. But that would be, that would be one of the many lessons that I've kind of learned along the way. Yeah.
After the formation of the idea, how did you go about actually inventing the product?
Right. Yeah. So it took about 2 years from just like thinking about it, talking about it at a bar on campus, and then actually like going to market, which is pretty fast if you think about it. So the first stage was putting in our own money. We put in about $25,000 each from our own money to kind of find it was just myself and my co-founder. My background is finance and strategy, and my co-founder's background was operations and kind of management consulting. So neither of us were engineers, right? And we didn't have a technical co-founder at that time. We brought one on. We were frantically looking for one. It took us 6 months, 7 months to find one. So during that time, we tried to meet as many people as we could all around New York City. Tried to like go to every meetup that there was and stand in front for 5 minutes before it started and just pitch 30 people in the room what we were working on, and if anyone thought it was cool, we'd love to talk with them. And then we found some PhD students who made like a basic prototype for us. We just kind of hustled, right? Hustled around, tried to get that early momentum, ended up finding that co-founder at one of those kind of meetups. He was just leaving his previous startup. So then we were a trio for a good solid year. We got into a Techstars accelerator program, which gave us $120,000. It put us in a like boiler room type of forcing function where in 90 days we got like 8 months worth of work done because they give you all these resources, they give you interns, they give you access to all sorts of mentors, and that really helped propel us to ultimately pitching in like a demo day type of event to a lot of investors, to members of the press. That helped us raise even more money. We were able to hire more people, continue down the prototyping stage, keep testing the products, filing for patent protection. It just kind of followed this upward trajectory. And then one of the people that we hired had a whole career of working with overseas manufacturers to take a prototype into something that was scalable. So he went out to China for us and ran a whole RFP process where he met with 30 manufacturers that he all knew personally. We whittled those down to 5. We met with all 5 of them as a team. We flew out there. We selected one. Then we worked with that one manufacturer for a whole year on taking our prototype and basically ripping it to the ground and starting over again, because oftentimes a prototype is not scalable, right? So it was a whole process, and it took about a little over 2 years. Yeah?
How have you realized that the product that you are selling right now have demand? Did you make any surveys?
Yeah, we did like an Indiegogo campaign early on. It was like a $50,000 campaign. It wasn't huge. Gave us a little bit of an insight. Going on a show like Shark Tank is really cool because ultimately it's like a 15-minute commercial, right, for your company. So that brings a lot of eyeballs to your website. Organically now, without doing much digital advertising, we get like 30, 40,000 people to our website every month, most of them unique, right? So we have a lot of inbound, and we know now what the direct demand is, and now we have a sales team that sells our products to home builders, to utility companies, to like heating and cooling professionals, right, like contractors. So that's an area that we're starting to now move into, and we're pretty impressed with the demand there. But it's always important to try to gauge as best as you can what the demand is going to be. And that could be, if it's like an app or a service, it's just like, making a landing page, right, in a day and buying, advertising for that on Facebook or Google and just seeing what like click-through is, right? Like have a call to action, set up an experiment to test it, right? Put in a couple $100 and you should be able to see, can you create like a viral loop? Can you, prove that there's some sort of, stickiness? There's all sorts of ways. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars to test demand.
Please raise your hand so I can give you the mic and the rest of the class can hear your questions when you ask a question. Okay.
Thought there was a couple other ones.
So what made you realize that finance wasn't for you after 7 years of working in it? What was the trigger point of,
It's a good question. I wouldn't say finance wasn't for me necessarily. I really liked finance. I was pretty successful in my career. I enjoyed my job. I didn't like hate my job or anything like that. It was just kind of time for me to get my MBA. That was kind of just the next thing for me personally. In just my growth as a professional. But I went into grad school with kind of just an open mind. Like I was applying for investment banking type of jobs. I had an offer to work at an investment bank. But then this opportunity kind of just presented itself. And, again, the benefit of working a little bit is you have a little bit of money saved, hopefully, and you have a little bit of like a track record to fall back on, so you're able to maybe take more risks. So I took a risk and decided to sort of explore entrepreneurship, and obviously came to find that I really like it and love it. But that doesn't mean I didn't like what I was doing per se. Did you have a question? Oh, cool.
This is a question from Twitter. What class or experience at Penn State best prepared you for your success?
That's a good question. Certainly, several of the, believe it or not, when I started I started a job working as a financial analyst at a big satellite communications company in New York City. And I was like 24, 25, and it was in a corporate office. This company called Loral Space Communications. So it was just the executives. The company was about $1 billion market cap company, maybe 1,000 employees. But this was the corporate office in New York. So it was just the CEO, the other executive officers, the CFO, the treasurer, et cetera, and me. So it was a kind of a sink or swim opportunity. And I just remember like the company was in the middle of buying another company for $3 billion. And I was sort of there to help do some of the financial modeling for that. And I literally like locked myself in my office every night, shut the door and busted out my old like Penn State finance textbooks and like and accounting textbooks and poured over them. So certainly, finance is that, and computer science and IST, they're definitely functional types of degrees. So I was able to really rely on the education that I got and the fundamentals of those that do like Wall Street types of deals. And then my speech comm class, everybody like either loves or hates that class. Usually you hate it. But it's kind of like puts you on your way to getting a job, giving presentations in front of your managers or people like that. And then if you start your own company, pitching it to hundreds and hundreds of investors, it's public speaking is like one of those things that you just got to keep working at.
Hi. When you're testing a prototype, how much proof of demand do you need before you invest money into developing it?
That's a really tough question because it really depends on, are you selling a $5 thing? Are you selling a $500,000 thing, right? I'm assuming it's going to be like a consumer type of product. If it's a consumer type of product, you need to have substantial comfort level that people want what you're selling. And Kickstarter and Indiegogo, there's ways to do that now. Kickstarter is kind of like a double-edged sword now because unless you're doing a $500,000 million campaign, it's often like, oh, you only did 100,000. Like investors sort of, or why do you think that happened? You're kind of almost apologizing for it. So, if you are tapping that resource, I would definitely recommend you have a plan to do that. But there's all sorts of ways that you should be able to, as I was saying earlier, you can put up a landing page and just try to drive traffic to it and just see, or like put up a Facebook ad and try to rack up a couple million views. But just for yourself, forget investors, right? Like you want to know for yourself, honestly, do people give a shit about what you're building before you sink not only potentially OPM, other people's money into it, but your own time. It's your own life, right? There's always an opportunity cost. So, so many times I see founders like working on projects that, I really believe they must know in the backs of their minds aren't really going anywhere, but they're just plowing ahead year after year, just grinding it out. So you got to kind of be brutally honest, especially early on. Is this something that's going to really have legs and get some traction before you start to really get in the weeds?
Any more questions?
At what part through the process did you find it to be the most difficult, whether it be from getting it off the ground to scaling it to making those tough decisions?
Yeah, it's an easy one, raising money. I tell people this often, raising money as a first-time entrepreneur is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life, if not the hardest. You kind of hear, oh, you're going to get told no 99 times before you get told yes. That's pretty much true, but what you don't hear is how much it sucks to get told no 99 times, right? Because it's not just a no, it's like, no, this is why your idea sucks, this is why you suck, this is why your whole life sucks, right? And it's obviously it's not, I'm being hyperbolic, but it kind of wears you out emotionally and mentally. And then, if you're married, if you have a spouse, they're like, what's going on? Are you going to get a job, or what's your plan here? And thankfully, my wife has always been very supportive. But it's a logical question, because it's not like you start to raise money and then a couple of months later you have $1 million in your pocket, right? It takes a long time, and you kind of have to again have a plan. And I can talk for a long time about how to raise money and how to make a plan and how to do that kind of thing. But that's certainly, for me, was the biggest challenge.
So I actually have a question. Sure. So a lot of us are coders, or a lot of us are computer science people who don't know the business or financial side of things. So how can we compensate for that when we're doing our own startup?
Yeah, I think just like business people, often feel handicapped by not knowing how to code, right? And then those people go and, take a coding boot camp or, some sort of, whether it's a classroom-based or online-based education, there's those same types of tools for some basic business education. And I think, the way that education in general is moving in the future, universities are obviously going to have their place, but you do see this sort of democratization of knowledge, right? Where if it's like Stanford just like releasing all their curricula so people can follow along online, that's going to be the future. So it's really going to be incumbent upon you, the individual, to seek out the knowledge, and the knowledge is there, and oftentimes the knowledge is free. but you have to seek it out, and you have to dedicate yourself to doing self-study, right? And I know when you're a student, full-time student, it's hard to do self-study for things that are not directly associated with your major because you're buried, right, under all the work. But if you're hungry and you validate that there's some demand, for what you're kind of interested in, then it might pay off to not go out for drinks one weekend and kind of try to take an online course or something. But there's all sorts of tools out there. You just got to look for them.
Any further questions? Maybe if you could raise your hand while first person is talking, then I can go to you with the mic.
Another Twitter question. You said that you were told no 99 times or close to that. Did you ever want to quit? And if so, how did you find the motivation to keep going?
Yeah, it certainly crossed my mind that maybe this just wasn't going to work out, on to kind of something else. I think ultimately I drew a lot of motivation and confidence and just like emotional security from both my wife and my co-founder, right? Hell, I was probably spending more time with my co-founder than I was with my wife during some of those early times. And I think the benefit of having a co-founder instead of being a solo founder, and there's pros and cons to each, is you can kind of lean on that other person, and if you have a good symbiotic relationship with that person, when you're sort of low, they'll pick you up, and when they're low, you'll pick them up. And it doesn't always work out like that, right? Sometimes you're both low, sometimes you're both high, but I do remember like instances where I was just, I met with somebody really smart, and they kind of poked a lot of holes in our idea, and you feel kind of bad, right? You feel defeated. And I would speak to Ryan, and he would kind of make a lot of good counter arguments. I'd be like, yeah, maybe it could work, So certainly that helped me get through some of the trying times.
What were the most common reasons that you were told no? Like maybe like 3?
A lot of investors don't like hardware because of the complexity and the costs, the capital required to build hardware is much more than software, right? Because software you can iterate, basically on a very sort of shoestring budget, whereas hardware there's a lot of capital intensive processes. So that was certainly one. Another was they just didn't believe that the technology was like game changing enough. It was too boring, right? Like a lot of investors, they're human beings. They have friends. Oftentimes their friends are wealthy, and it's a game of trying to one up the other one. Like, look at this cool company that I just invested in. We were making smart zoning systems, right? That's not the sexiest thing when you're talking about augmented reality and some of the other, cool things that were happening around that time. So that would certainly be another one. And then another one would be like, it's a little frustrating, but we certainly heard early on that like the team just wasn't there because it was just 3 of us. It's valid, but as an entrepreneur, you're like, well, I need money to have a team, right? So it's a little chicken or the egg. But some investors kind of want to see a little bit of they call it a deeper technical bench. So the fact that 1 out of us 3 was an engineer, the other 2 were not, pardon me. Early on, we kind of heard some feedback that was, a little troubling. So those are 3 that I can think of. I hear like literal crickets, I think. What is that?
Okay, if there's no further questions, then let's give a round of applause for Nayeem. And Stick around if you want to talk to him or meet him up close.